Hi, it's Mark from Top Local. I'm here with Daryl Ross of Corporate Connections in Vancouver, and we're talking networking. How are you doing today, Daryl?
I'm well, thanks. How about yourself?
Good. So surviving the COVID-19 lockdown in Canada, or social distancing, or whatever you want to call it. So you've been in the networking game for a long time. Maybe tell us a little bit about your history of how you got into networking and what you've been doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very fortunate. I heard about a company called BNI way back when, 1996. I was living in Toronto, working with an office furniture company, and I knew that I was being sent out to BC to open up a territory here. And one of the dealers that I knew there introduced me to BNI, and he said, "You should check it out." And I called them, and they didn't even have a chapter yet. But by the time I got to Vancouver, there was a chapter. So I was a member of the very first chapter of BNI, which is Business Network International. And soon thereafter, the office furniture company wanted me to go back to Toronto. And I said, no, it's too beautiful out here. And so I ended up, making a long story short, working for BNI and helped grow that group and ultimately almost 50 groups in BC, close to 1,000 members over a 10 to 11 year period. And, it's BNI really is founded by Ivan Meisner, and, people may have heard Givers Gain, but it really is a network that's established for small to medium-sized businesses. People meet on a regular basis, and they're actually bringing business to each other. So I worked with BNI from 1996 all the way up to the end of 2007. And at that point, I just had some other opportunities that were presented to me and kind of exciting. Ended up working with a company that was taking a golf concept public and some technology companies, et cetera. And fast forward to 10 years later, I was approached by a company called Corporate Connections, which is actually owned by BNI. And it's just a different level of business person. So they're targeting the C-level business owners. And the idea is that these individuals still have a need for networking. They're still looking for opportunities. And they're also looking for a little bit more. The opportunity that they might be looking for is that peer-to-peer experience, personal development opportunities, just expanding their awareness of what's going on globally. And that really excited me about Corporate Connections. BNI is phenomenal on a local basis, helping businesses in an area that are really going to support each other on a regular basis. Corporate Connections is taking it to that next level where it's businesses that are looking to potentially expand beyond their province or beyond their country. And members are actually connected to all the members worldwide. So there's phenomenal opportunities for growth, expansion. We like to say extraordinary experiences. So I'm really excited about just fairly new for me. I really officially started in January with Corporate Connections.
So let's talk about networking and how that works. Like, isn't this whole physical person-to-person networking thing, is it just a pitch fest? Is it like in-person cold calling? How does this work?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people's impression, especially people that are sort of anti-sales have this impression that networking is that pitch fest. I remember a story years ago. I was at a Christmas party and was speaking with this woman who was a lawyer. And as soon as I mentioned that, oh yeah, with BNI, it's a business networking organization. And first thing out of her mouth was, I hate networking. I hate being networked. And, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, well, I think what you hate is being sold. So anyways, that conversation ended pretty quickly. But yeah, no, networking is much more about meeting people and then really having the attitude, we mentioned this before, but networking without expectation. So it's getting to know people and seeing if there's a possibility of helping them in some way. And obviously, you're looking for people that might be able to help you as well. But the attitude really is much more making connections with people that you really, I guess it's key. When you're thinking about business, people like to do business with people they know, like, and trust. So I think, the initial stages of networking, that's just getting to know people, seeing if you even like them, and then, you can build trust over time, and that might lead to business. Life is too short to spend time with people that you don't like. It's one of the benefits for sure.
So it's kind of like you had in the notes here, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's something that takes time. It's not you go in on Monday and you close, you hammer some people and you've got deals by Friday. That's not how this works.
No, it's definitely a marathon. Yeah. And that is because, and what Ivan Meisner, one of his famous quotes is networking is more about farming than it is about hunting. And that's really the key. And so, what people have to think about is, well, what does farming mean? So, or, that marathon analogy, well, it's going to take time. And so it's about investing time in the relationship. And the challenge that people have is they have this perception that they don't have time, right? So everyone's busy, and, scrambling around. And so do I have time? I don't have time to go to these networking meetings or do this or do that. Well, then there has to be something that can be done over time that makes it easier. And, especially now where isolation and physical distancing, et cetera, where there just aren't networking events going on. I've been thinking about what can people do consistently to still be investing small increments of time that'll lead to results. I saw something recently that I thought was a great idea. Someone suggesting that you go down, look in your texts, go down to the bottom 4 texts, and just send a quick message out to people saying, letting them know what's going on in your life, ask them what's going on in theirs. But good idea was to say, put no rush, no rush in there. I know everyone's busy, but it's amazing. I've tried this, and a couple of people that I reached out to, I hadn't texted for a long time, and people are quite open to texting. And I got replies back much sooner than I thought. And then that actually led to, well, let's have a phone call or let's do a Zoom and go from there. So, but that's, if you look at the numbers, I mean, how difficult would it be to send out one message a day? There's that expression, it's easy to do, but the challenge is it's also easy not to do. So you have to think about, well, it's easy to do, and then just do that consistently. If you did one message a day, didn't do it on the weekends, it's 20 per week or 20 per month, right? Over 240 contacts a year that you'd be reaching out to. And something good has to come from that, for sure.
Or as you kind of almost intimated there by mistake, is if you quadrupled that, so it was, I don't know what that ends up being, almost 960 a year, 1,000 a year, you're definitely going to be getting some connections that turn into interest, which is the whole point of using any of the social media platforms, or us even doing this kind of presentation, I guess, or chat.
Yes.
But, the point is that consistency in creating content or consistency in reaching out to people who you actually have an interest in talking some more with, whether it's just purely business, that's an honest motivation. Or it's somebody who you like what they've been saying on, if your platform's LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, reaching out to them to further the relationship, to see if there is actually a connection there beyond what you've seen. They say good things, but they're a bit of you don't really align with them when you talk to them a little bit. That's okay. There's a big spectrum of human beings out there, and, you don't have to like everybody. But you can choose to only do business with people you like, and it's a lot more pleasant. I'll tell you that. I've earned my gray hairs.
Yeah.
So corporate connections is basically a furtherance of that, but basically what kind of companies are targeted at corporate connections?
Really, we're looking for companies that are doing ideally 5 million a year in sales and up. And so it can be any industry. So we're not specifically saying, it needs to be this industry or that industry. It's really about, getting those people together that know, like, and trust each other, that are, going to want to meet on a regular basis. So with corporate connections, it's 2 meetings a month. Right now, they're all virtual. We've been using Zoom quite effectively. But when we're not in COVID times, they're live meetings. So there's a local aspect to it, a regional aspect to it. So it's businesses that are generating some opportunities for each other and seeing ways that they want to help each other on a local basis. But then, as I mentioned, they're also connected to other chapters across Canada and around the world.
So it's an opportunity basically to maybe get your whole supply chain involved if there are local within that, and deepen the connection that you already have. You might be doing business with a lot of people and never ever have talked to the CEO of that was effectively a partner company for you. And this is a way to get together with those people along with others and start spreading the wealth. The rising tide floats all boats. So the more people work together, that's what I saw in BNI. It was the more people work together, the better it worked for the people who were working it. And it really was amazingly effective. I mean, you were part of the group that I was a member of. And I mean, before I left, I just live a long ways away from where that meeting is now, but it was $10 to $12 million a year in past business. And this is all verified and tracked. That's a lot for going to a networking meeting once a week. So this is an effective way more effective than most people realize of generating business.
Absolutely. And at Corporate Connections, we're taking it right to the CEO, business owner level. So the ability to make decisions or pivot or form strategic alliances, and as you said, integrate your supply chain is much higher. And that's really where people are seeing the value. And for example, in Vancouver's first chapter, we've got a real estate team in there that is, very, very powerful. We've got a residential realtor, commercial builder, residential builder, looking at an interior designer to come into the group soon. And they're already working on major projects together, like multiple units of a daycare or, this restaurant doing multiple locations, et cetera. So there's opportunities that I think to accelerate, their growth and definitely make it worth the time of the CEO that's investing time in attending the meetings and building the relationships with others in the group.
So does it work best for CEOs who are more of like a selling CEO rather than a managing CEO?
Kind of depends. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think ultimately the selling CEOs are probably going to be more attracted to it initially. However, the managing CEOs, and we're finding this in our more mature groups that have been around for a few years, especially in Montreal, where they're more for the peer-to-peer experience and just the expansion of their network and the educational opportunities that they're getting. Or even what I've seen, which is really heartwarming, is opportunities to give back. So there are CEOs that have charities that are close to their heart, and they're able now to, be actively networking with other CEOs, and so they can support each other's charities and communities and really focus on that giving back piece. And again, it's just everything's easier in numbers, right, with like-minded people. So there's a huge benefit there.
So there you go. We've been talking about physical networking with Daryl Ross of Corporate Connections in Vancouver.
Thank you.